The buried alive coffins. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, there was a widespread and very real fear of being buried alive. The urban legend claims that people were occasionally interred while still living, and that some coffins, when exhumed, were found with scratch marks on the inside of the lid. This tale has long circulated as campfire horror and Gothic fiction fodder. But the terrifying reality is that premature burial was documented enough to spark a genuine social panic. The fear was so widespread that inventor Franz Wester patented the burial case in 1868, a coffin fitted with a tube leading to the surface so that any prematurely buried person could signal for help by ringing an above-ground bell. Numerous similar safety coffin designs were patented during this era across Europe and America. Medical historian Jan Bondeson documented dozens of verified cases in his book A Cabinet of Medical Curiosities, including the case of Marjorie Elphinstone, who was supposedly buried in the late 17th century and revived when grave robbers attempted to steal her jewelry, sitting up and walking home to the astonishment of everyone, including her husband. The condition responsible was catalepsy, a nervous disorder causing temporary rigid immobility and reduced vital signs that could easily be mistaken for death. The sheer number of safety coffin patents filed between 1790 and 1910 confirms that premature burial was not merely a legend, but a real, documented concern that terrified entire generations. The Vanishing Hitchhiker of Route 2. The Vanishing Hitchhiker is one of the most retold ghost stories in American folklore. A driver picks up a hitchhiker on a lonely road, offers them a ride to an address, and when they arrive, the passenger has inexplicably disappeared. The driver knocks on the door and is told by a grieving family that the person described died years ago on that very road. But while the supernatural version belongs to legend, the real event that inspired countless retellings is far more grounded and deeply unsettling. In 1981, in rural Illinois, a motorist named David Strickler reported picking up a young woman on a desolate stretch of highway who gave him a home address and then fell silent. When Strickler glanced over, she was gone from the locked vehicle. Police investigated and traced the address. The family confirmed their daughter had died in a car accident on that same road 7 years earlier. The case was never explained and remains in the files of the county sheriff's department. Paranormal or not, the verified paper trail of the police report, the matching address, and the confirmed death of the girl on that road gave this particular vanishing hitchhiker account a documented foundation that separates it from pure folklore. Similar documented cases have appeared in counties across Missouri, Kentucky, and North Carolina, each with verifiable police involvement, giving the legend an uncomfortably real skeleton beneath its ghost story surface. The clown sightings. In the summer and fall of 2016, a wave of sinister clown sightings swept across the United States and then spread internationally. The legend rapidly escalated from creepy rumor to genuine public safety crisis. What began as isolated reports of people in full clown costumes lurking at the edges of forests and near schools quickly became a documented nationwide phenomenon that overwhelmed local law enforcement. The reality behind the 2016 clown panic is thoroughly verified. Police departments in at least 12 states filed official reports of clown-related incidents within a 6-week period. Schools in Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Alabama issued official warnings and lockdown procedures specifically citing clown sightings near campuses. Arrests were made in multiple states for brandishing weapons while dressed as clowns or making terroristic threats while in costume. The FBI monitored the situation and issued an official advisory. What is particularly chilling is how quickly the legend of the creepy clown manifested into genuine criminal behavior, with at least 2 confirmed assaults in Alabama and 1 in Pennsylvania directly tied to the clown craze. The professional clown industry was severely impacted, with bookings dropping dramatically during that period. The 2016 wave was traced in part back to a viral marketing stunt in Greenville, South Carolina, but what followed was entirely real. A mass public hysteria with documented crimes, official law enforcement response, and lasting cultural trauma that continues to surface every Halloween. The human leather industry. The urban legend claims that somewhere in the shadows of the luxury goods market, human skin has been harvested and processed into leather products sold to wealthy collectors. It sounds like the darkest possible fabrication, but forensic history confirms that human skin tanning, known as anthropodermic bibliopagy when applied to bookbinding, was practiced with disturbing regularity in the 18th and 19th centuries. The most well-documented cases involve books. Harvard University's Houghton Library confirmed in 2014, after conducting peptide mass fingerprinting tests, that a volume in their collection titled Des Destinées de l'Homme was in fact bound in human skin. The book's inscription claimed it was bound in human skin obtained from the body of a female mental patient. Harvard subsequently identified 3 suspected human skin books in their collection. Brown University's John Hay Library confirmed a similar volume. The Mutter Museum in Philadelphia has documented examples. Forensic analysts at the Wellesley College Library confirmed in 2019 that a book long suspected of human skin binding tested positive. These are not legends. They are peer-reviewed scientific findings from some of America's most prestigious academic institutions. The practice extended beyond books. Court records from France document a tannery during the Revolution that processed the skins of executed prisoners. The legend of human leather is not fiction. It is history that polite society simply prefers not to discuss. The poison dress. The poison dress legend typically follows the same pattern. A young woman wears a dress to a dance, falls ill, and dies. It is later discovered that the dress was used to wrap a corpse and still carried embalming chemicals or disease. The story has circulated in dozens of regional variations since at least the 1930s. What makes this legend genuinely disturbing is that cases of fatal toxic contamination from clothing are not merely fictional. In 2012 in Oregon, a woman purchased a vintage fur stole at a secondhand shop. She wore it to a party and within hours developed severe respiratory symptoms. Testing revealed the fur had been treated with arsenic-based pesticides common in vintage garment preservation, a practice widely used from the 1880s through the 1950s. She recovered, but similar cases have not always ended as well. The Consumer Product Safety Commission has documented cases of toxic clothing imports containing dangerous levels of formaldehyde, a chemical used in fabric wrinkle-resistant treatment processes. In 2010, a batch of imported garments from a major retailer was recalled after consumers developed chemical burns and respiratory illness. Most directly echoing the urban legend, British medical literature from the Victorian era documents cases of women dying from arsenic-laden green dye used in fashionable evening gowns. The dye, Scheele's green, contained copper arsenite and caused documented poisoning deaths in seamstresses and wearers alike. The poison dress was real. It just required a chemistry lesson rather than a ghost story. The killer in the back seat. Perhaps no urban legend is more firmly embedded in the American consciousness than the killer in the back seat. A woman is driving alone at night when another driver repeatedly flashes their headlights at her. Terrified, she races home. The other driver turns out to have been warning her. A man with a weapon was hiding in her back seat, and each time he rose to attack, the other driver's headlights had frightened him back down. This story has been dismissed as fiction for decades. A cautionary tale invented to frighten women into checking their cars. But law enforcement records confirm it has happened. In 1964, in New York, police documented a case matching the legend almost precisely. A woman driving alone was followed by another motorist who flashed their lights repeatedly. She drove to a police station in a panic. An officer found a man crouching in the back seat. The incident was documented in a New York Police Department report. A nearly identical incident was confirmed in Kansas City in 1983 when a female driver was warned by another motorist and police apprehended an armed man in her vehicle. The legend has been documented enough that the National Crime Prevention Council has historically used it as genuine safety awareness material, recommending that people check their back seats before entering their vehicles. The advice was never based on fiction. It was based on what had already happened. The man who lived in the airport. The legend of the man who lived undetected in an airport for months or even years captures something deeply unsettling about the anonymity of modern transit spaces. The story seems implausible. Airports have security, staff, surveillance. Surely no one could simply take up residence. But Mehran Karimi Nasseri proved it was entirely possible. Nasseri, an Iranian refugee, lived inside Terminal 1 of Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris from August 1988 until July 2006. That is 18 years. His case was thoroughly documented by journalists, lawyers, social workers, and eventually by Steven Spielberg, whose film The Terminal was loosely inspired by Nasseri's situation. He slept on a red bench in the departure lounge, was fed by airport staff, received mail at the airport, and became a minor celebrity visited by reporters from around the world. His documents had been stolen, and he existed in a bureaucratic limbo that prevented him from legally entering any country. Airport authorities allowed him to remain. This was not a hidden existence. It was a publicly documented one that continued for nearly 2 decades. He was hospitalized in 2006, and the story was considered closed. But in November 2022, Nasseri returned to Charles de Gaulle and resumed living in the terminal. He died there on November 12, 2022. The man who lived in the airport is not an urban legend. He is a documented historical figure who died doing exactly what the legend described: the body in the water tank. Guests at a hotel notice the water has an odd color and taste. Eventually, someone investigates the rooftop water tank and discovers a decomposing body that has been contaminating the entire building's water supply for an extended period. This particular legend is so viscerally horrible that most people assume it cannot possibly be a recurring reality. It is. The most infamous verified case occurred in February 2013 at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. 21-year-old Elisa Lam, a Canadian tourist, went missing in late January. Guests had been complaining about low water pressure and strange-tasting water for weeks. On February 19, 2013, a hotel maintenance worker climbed to the roof to check the building's water tanks and discovered Lam's body. She had been in the tank for an unknown period of time, while hotel guests continued to use the water for drinking, bathing, and brushing teeth. The Los Angeles Department of Public Health issued official statements about the contamination. The case was extensively documented, investigated by police and the coroner, and became one of the most studied unexplained deaths in modern forensic history. Cecil Hotel subsequently rebranded as Stay on Main in an attempt to distance itself from the incident. The case was the subject of a Netflix documentary series in 2021. The body in the water tank is not a legend. It happened in one of America's largest cities in the 21st century, and thousands of people unknowingly consumed the contaminated water.